So good morning everyone and welcome to the session Inspire Underground. My name is Daniela Hogrebe, I'm the chair for this morning, and we will have 4 presentations about utility services and all the other stuffs under the ground. And our first presenter is Astrid Houtum, who will tell us something about KLIC. So please.
Okay, thank you. Good morning everybody, and welcome to you all. I've understood that we are going next year to Portugal, so I've translated my presentation to Portuguese. Eu chamo-me Astrid Houtum, eu trabalho at cadastro, the holandese. That's about it. You must study yourself. My presentation is about KLIC. About information service that my agency, Cadastre in Holland, maintains. It's a use case of utility services, a sub-theme of Inspire. Working. These are the topics I want to discuss. One moment. First, I will explain what KLIC is. A bit of history. It's based on a legal act since 2008. That I will explain also. We have made a thorough investigation, and where the needs of the industry were determined. I will discuss that, and then the relationship with Inspire, sub-theme utility services, and afterwards there will be some time for discussion or questions. After a number of excavation incidents in the Netherlands, a foundation was grounded called KLIC. It's an abbreviation of Cables and Pipelines Information Center. And this was already in 1967, a private initiative of network operators, and the goal was to decrease the number of excavation incidents, excavation damages due to on cables and pipelines. It was a call center at first by phone, fax, later on by email. An excavator could report the excavation location, this was dispatched to the network operators. The network operators sent in the maps directly to the excavator. It was quite simple procedure, well established, but and effective, because the information directly came to the excavator. But it was based on voluntary participation of both network operators and by excavators. For network operators, it was quite labor intensive. They have to print in that time and copy the maps and send it to the excavator. And it also were unstandardized maps, so different scales, different sizes, different symbols, and that proved to be counterproductive. In 2008, there was a legal act came into force. It's called WION. It's also an abbreviation of Underground Cables and Pipelines Information Exchange Act. It contains legal obligation for all parties. The act is in English available if you wish to. A commissioning party must ensure that an excavator can work with, can be performed in due care. Every excavator has to report the mechanical digging plans and work with due care. Every network operator is obliged to participate in the information exchange and deliver specified information via the electronic information exchange system, it's called KLIC Online, to the excavator. My employer, Cadastre, had to build and develop and maintain the service. And at last, the agency Telecom has a task to monitor the process and to enforce it. And enforce really mean enforcing on both the network operators and excavators. This is the conceptual model of the actual system. An applicant, a contractor, an excavator can report his digging plans via a web-based to KLIC Online, via internet. He has to be known. There's a key there. He has to be identified, authenticated. By mapping his excavation location to the convex halls of the network operators, we determine which network operators are involved, on average 8. They get a notification, network operator 1 to X, of the network, of the excavation plans. They send in back the network plans to our system, KLIC Online. We bundle it and put it on a network, on a download server, and the applicant can collect it there. Now, simple procedure. Still not working. Here you see an example of a map, an overview map. This is a part of the delivery package. For every network there is a separate map. You can see here my house. Does this work? Yeah, this works. Here's where I live. And here you see all green lines. That's telecom. You see some yellow if there is. There is red. Yellow is gas. Red is electricity. Storage in two lines. Yeah. This is my area where I live, and the dotted line is the excavation location I have put in. Fine result. Obligated participation, a one-stop shop for excavators, standardized, and a pretty cheap service for only €21.50 per request. Some think it's still too much. I see smiling. A KLIC Online is fast. In most cases, a delivery package can be delivered within an hour. It has led to more efficiency for both network operators and excavators. We are certified with the legal act, WION, and we are satisfied with the enforcement by agency Telecom. There was a decrease of the number of excavation damages, but not as much as we expected and not as much as we hoped. Furthermore, the system is basically designed for desktop use for planners who print, plot the maps and hand those out to their outside employees. A thorough investigation in the industry has revealed industry are both network operators, excavators, managers of public space, etc., the whole bunch. Has released that relevant and reliable information needs to be ubiquitous. Small, nice word, means omnipresent, continuously available 24/7, without waiting, near real time, and presented at any location and on any user platform. Besides information about cables and pipelines, an excavator needs all kinds of information like plant topography, type of soil, groundwater level, cadastral boundaries, addresses, etc., etc. In order to make a development plan, the information needs to be analyzable and interoperable. And the industry demands a controlled process in case of excavations, with authenticated users and specification of their request. The applicant profile will determine the authorization, the level of authorization. And the information, the geographical information, needs to be exchanged via WMS and WFS, web services. These needs are similar to the requirements of INSPIRE. INSPIRE includes the sub-theme utility services. It implicates that about 650 out of 1,000 network operators, Dutch network operators, are INSPIRE obligatory. End of 2013, the involved network operators should have published their metadata on the national platform for that and have their web services operational with data as is. We did not meet that deadline. By 2020, the data should be harmonized with the European data model, and as you see, the quality demands are extremely high. Implementing INSPIRE utility service, each on their own, would implicate huge costs for the Dutch network operators. It would result in an information system parallel to the actual KLIC online, two different information systems which contain approximately the same information. The area information would also be incomplete, since strictly private companies are not INSPIRE mandatory, like telecom. The Dutch network operators and excavators want only one system that fits both WION, the Dutch Act, and INSPIRE, the European initiative. Last December, a letter of intent was signed by two ministries, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Environment and Infrastructure, the Cadastre, the Dutch Platform of Network Operators, and Rob is a member of that, two main branch organizations of excavation companies, Municipal Platform of Managers of Public Space, and the branch organization of Sewage. We also set up a steering committee. The intention is to design and develop a system for exchange of network information as an extension on the actual system KLIC Online, in a way that it meets both the Dutch Act and INSPIRE requirements. In January, we started the process of describing the outlines of the system, including synergy with other existing systems. We are preparing a program plan. We have some challenges, such as finding a way to fit in the 3 A's of WION, authentication, authorization, and accounting, into INSPIRE, which is oriented on, I say oriented, not obligatory, open and free. A part of the utilities definitely does not want to cooperate with an open and free information exchange of data of their networks. This goes for the water companies, the telecom industry, and vital infrastructure. We consider 3 options. In every option, the portal of reporting is based on the national law WION. The same portal is to be used to request information from the utilities based on Inspire. In a decentralized, in a centralized system, all information is gathered into a database warehouse, data warehouse. In a decentralized fashion, each company holds its own data and is exchanged on request, on every request. And a hybrid model is a mixture of both. The positions have been taken. All regular network operators except the telecom industry probably will copy a subset of their data to a central data warehouse. Probably. The telecom industry, which is not Inspire mandatory, rejects that idea, so I've mentioned, and the remaining 350 private companies which possess relatively small networks, meters from up to a few kilometers, they probably will choose also for centralizing their information into the portal, but they may choose otherwise. In July, this is the process scheme of that. Several network operators copy their data to a data warehouse, and some do not, and the information is gathered on request. In July, the steering committee will make decisions, and most likely we will choose for the hybrid model, this one. The network operators, which are Inspire, probably will copy a subset of their data into the data warehouse. Network operators, which are not Inspire mandatory, have a choice. They may also choose to keep their data on their own or centralize it. These network operators will be selected based on their convex halls, which are registered in the system. In the summer, we will develop a new information model, cables and pipelines, not only for Inspire but also for other purposes. Inspire data model will be one of the product models in that data model, and after our holidays we will start with developing the system. The intention is to be ready and up and running in 2016 with harmonized data. This concludes my presentation. There is some time for questions, I hope. Yes? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience?
Do you intend to add other underground information in the KLIC WIN system, like soil or human health?
Not in the information system about cables and pipelines. That would be strange. But there is a mashup possible of several layers. So in that means the information, the layer may be served, but not directly from the information data model of cables and pipelines.
My question would be, did you face concerns of the network operators to provide their data via a download service? Because, as you showed, usually the information is given out as a raster map where the pipelines are in combination with the cadastre. And that's what I got. I mean, I'm going to talk about this anyway, but they said this relationship has to be preserved. And if I give that out and someone just takes it and puts it maybe on a cadastre, which is a different coordinate system, did you get that concerns against vector data without any context?
In the actual system, Click Online, raster data is being served.
I know, but
based on
now in the future when you serve WFS for Inspire.
No, and in the actual system and in the future system, the same base map will be used for the cable and pipelines and by network operators and by cadastre. So there are common model for the exchange.
Okay.
Am I clear?
Yeah, but maybe it becomes clear when I give my presentation, because there have been a lot of concerns about this, that someone else can take then the WFS, which just serves the network data without any context, and use that to give information on the location, which is probably not connected. But anyway, maybe that's just a very strange German problem.
I hope.
Okay.
Do not export it.
Yeah, but if you have a download service, you do. Okay.
Maybe we can discuss this later. Any other questions? Okay, then thank you again, Art.
Thank you.
And we go on with the second presentation from Maria Cabello about Geosmart cities.
Okay, seems that doesn't work anymore. Yes. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so let me start with this presentation. First of all, you have here, I'm going to give you some brief introduction of the Geosmartcity project, and you have here some information and leaflets that are available, and after the session you could take one and go home with more information on how to read information about the project. Don't forget to take. Okay, let's go on. The Geosmartcity project has started in this year, so it's really a first approach. We are not really applying anything, but we are going to do during the next few years. The project is obviously related with the term geo, but also with the smart cities. So they try to support the citizens to open their data to professionals and citizens. This is very well related with the Inspire philosophy, so provide information in an open environment and available for anyone that could be interested in using this information. How we are trying to do that? So the approach will be just try to create a hub or a cross-platform in which the different end users could take information and the data provided could upload their information. Evidently, some tools will be provided just in order to analyze or to exploit this information. And we also will integrate in a proprietary restricted data in the cities. But the main objective is just try to have in an open environment. But we know just now that some of the information will be in some way confidential and will not going to be able to open to everyone, just to some of the end users. Well, this is really a new business model for public administration and also for SMEs, small and medium enterprise. We are also looking to have some kind of collaboration in this perspective of public-private partnership. That is something that we are also looking very much in Horizon 2020. So facing this challenge, we think that we have already some experience, and this could be able to do, well, it's as usual. It's a European project. In this case, we have some business and exploitation plan that should be presented at the end of the project, but probably not all our goals could be fulfilled up to the end. The most important is that everything will try to be maintained in a secure way. We are just thinking about two scenarios. One of them is very usually to see, that is the green scenario. In the green scenario, probably we have the support of some legislation, some regulation related to the green energy. And in this context, 5 pilot cases will be presented, will be developed. But it's not so easy in the underground scenario because we don't really have any regulation at European level. So this is something that we have to face as a first approach in this kind of project probably, and will be established through 6 pilot cases. I'm here today to present one of the experience. It's the experience we are trying to establish in Spain, in the region of Navarre. There is another pilot in Spain, in Girona, but it's on the green energy. So let's go. What are we talking about? We are talking about some underground infrastructures that could be in the same area. We are talking about cables, different pipelines that are going probably in the same area in the underground context, and information that until now, in some cases, is not connected. But the infrastructure really impact to the environment, impact to the citizens, and some problems appears when we try to manage all this information. So I'm talking also about safety and security. That's it. Some holes in the street or some excavations, as you mentioned also. The pilot of Pamplona is based on a specific area of the region of Navarre. Just to try to give you the main figure, we are talking about an area that is the county of Pamplona, so we are talking about a federation of local councils just working together and in managing all the services related to the water, to the water, to the transport, to the river park, and also taxi service. You can see here the number of municipalities that are participating in this federation of local councils. But the county itself, it's about 300,000 more than inhabitants. This represents half of the population of the whole region. So it's a small area, but with the more density of the region. And the surface is not very big, neither, but it's there. The partners that are working in this pilot, I'm going to put the 3 of them. On one side, we have the supporting of the municipality of Pamplona, that is the biggest in the area, in the county, and is the capital of the region, so it's important. They are really facing a lot of work just on a smart cities approach, and this is something that will be new for them because they are used to be not in the underground context. For the Federation of Local Councils, that is one of the main actors in this pilot. They are providing the scenario because they are the proprietary of the information we are going to use. And on the third part, the territorial information system, that is the one that is dealing with the inspired information in general, and is going to provide also all the reference information we need, and they are also working with open data, so it's accessible for anyone, can be accessed through a standardized service, and this is something that we will try to profit. But anyway, still some work to do because none of the information is already transformed into inspired data specifications. So those are the three key words in the project. So smart cities, scenarios on the underground context, and open data information. The aim of the pilot. The aim of the pilot is just trying to integrate real data information. This is a key issue just in order to be more efficient when managing the underground information, and just trying to exploit the benefits of this interoperability in the sense of integrate the information of the utility networks together and offer different solutions to those utility networks. The specific data we are going to use, you can see there, firstly, in the first approach, is the water supply network and sewerage network. You can see here, it's already more than 20 lawyers for every of them. They are already provided as open data on a Creative Commons licensing, and is on the Inspire 3 and Inspire Annex 3. So still facing a lot of challenge just trying to produce or to create this information under the Inspire data model. This is something that is going to be faced in all the projects, so one of the main aspects is that we try to transform and to offer all information related to utilities in our case, and in the other scenario some additional information according to Inspire. This is what could foster also the possibility to open new cases, new user communities, just using Inspire solution. The solution we try to provide is just starting from information obtained from sensors through the SCADA, that is the way to replicate and to distribute this sensor information, so it's near real time. We will try to produce some desktop application, mobile application, web application, some integration of all this information through the platform, and finally to make possible to the end user to control and manage this information. But we already have some experience in this. Probably what we need here is just to complete. We have already some applications that are dealing with the complete cycle of water management, and the main problem we have now is that we don't really have this connection with the real with data in real time, and this is what we would like to build and to use. This will be one of the use cases in the project, just to integrate real time data into the system, just to demonstrate the utility of also the GIS, just integrating all this kind of information. And the second, and in this case I think that will be also probably interesting for you, is another experience we have in which all the utility networks, municipalities, the government, the Federation of Local Councils are working together. This is a closed environment in which they are sharing all the information, and through a web portal, they can just use the portal for asking for a new license to open or to do some excavation. They ask to the other utility network proprietaries to share all the investment in this case, and then they open together, and several networks are just putting at the same time their cables of the pipelines, so they are saving money. This is one of the first approach. They save money just sharing this information, and they are also for the municipality is the way to control all the different excavations, so then they are able to inform the citizens when is going to be open your road, and if the companies don't use the facility in this system, they don't receive the approval for doing the excavation. So this is very profitable. For them, they pay an amount. This is another business model, but they have just some fees on an annual basis, and then they can have all the geo information, all the maps, just with all the utilities information of the companies participating in the project. But further than this, they are also selling information to third parties, so anyone can go to the web, can ask for a map or for a solution, and they pay. And this is how they are just trying to exploit this project. I think that is quite important. But from our perspective, that we are talking about open data, open environment, this is something that we would like to change. And this is why we also propose this as another use case. In the sense to try to still coordinate, but to get involved more and more companies. And definitely try to see how this information, if it's possible to get involved the utility networks, companies, to transform and to go into the Inspire. So this is something that for us right now is the main challenge, because as you mentioned, for them there is no legal obligation. So we have to just convince them of the benefits of being here, and this is really a huge challenge. But in any case, not only for the companies, but also for the citizens and for the public administration, that helps them to manage. So another topic, another issue is just try to get involved more municipalities that could profit of this project, solution or application, and put all of this into the open data and Inspire environment. So this is the main idea. Of course, you can see this is more facing business. So we also have to think about exploitation of this. And in this sense, the idea is just mentioned before probably, just trying to identify those new users that could benefit of this, and then to be new customers for us as company, or for the project itself, offering these new solutions, new service, and enlarging the offer. And for those that are already there, just trying to offer new added value services that could reinforce their use of this kind of information, their current applications. The main clients until now, public administration and utility companies. This is clear. let's see if we can enlarge with some other kind of end users. Probably citizens are also interested to know where is an excavation, but it's already the public administration who is informing, so it's just something that in some way could be not really useful. But the idea is just trying to provide these market-ready solutions for both use cases for the water management, and in the other case just to reinforce the reuse of data in an open data environment, and also try to enlarge the data we are using for this purpose. Thank you for your attention, and if you have some questions.
Thank you very much, Maria. And do we have some questions to Maria? If this is not the case, then everything is clear.
We can think about the two ideas. So boring that no questions, so clear that no questions. So thank you very much anyway.
Thank you again.
Don't forget to take your leaflet.
Okay. The next presentation is from Astrid Feichtner about utilities and Inspire.
Let's start by taking your leaflet. Thank you, Daniela. So utilities and Inspire. We've heard a lot about innovative approaches to share and manage utility networks today in the session. We also heard that the Netherlands once again managed to create a very useful piece of legislation. Yep. So now let me take you back a few steps to my presentation first, maybe. Yep. No. No. Okay. Where? Okay. Sorry. I'll take you back a few steps to the day-to-day routine in an Inspire coordination office in a federation, like the German state. And I would like to share my experiences in the Secretariat for Spatial Data Infrastructure in Bavaria. But more importantly, I would like to get feedback from you. Best practices in involving utility companies, because we just started this process. So let's start by a typical scenario from the trenches. Phone rings. You got John Smith from the superpower utility, and he says, you know, this Inspire stuff, am I affected by this? I'm a private company. And of course, on the other end of the line, you might have your typical Inspire coordination office, and well, all in the Inspire technical guidelines, maybe in the back, your Inspire coordination office, and of course, I would like to give a very clear yes or no answer, just like Ed did, yeah. But I'm afraid in Germany, I'll have to say, well, and I have to ask a few questions. First, the easy one: does your organization have any data relating to Inspire Annex themes? Of course, for a utility, they most likely have a utility network. And that relates, of course, to the theme utility and governmental services. You heard about this already. And they might also have data on their energy production facility, which then again relates to the production and industrial facilities theme, which is kind of a complex theme. The second question I would have to ask is, what is your company's or your organization's legal form? Why do I ask that? Because it makes a difference. If the utility is an owner-operated municipal enterprise, which is very common in Germany, then this organization only has to provide the data if the member state has a law or a regulation mandating the collection and dissemination of that data. And if it's a private enterprise, it only has to provide data if it provides a public service relating to the environment, which is very clear that, I mean, provision of water or electricity is just considered being a public service, but only if you are under the control of a public authority. And that term control is very important in this sentence, but it's not defined in the directive. And in Germany, we also have a very heterogeneous situation, because we have one federal law and 16 state laws. Because spatial information, you've heard about the story probably a couple of times in this conference, is under state jurisdiction. So the term is defined in some laws and not defined in other laws. For example, in the Bavarian Spatial Data Infrastructure Act, it's not defined. So what do you do then? I went to my ministry's lawyers and asked them, what is control? And they took some months, but they came back with one answer. That's good for a couple of lawyers. So they came back with one answer, saying that the definition of the term control in the Federal Environmental Information Act is applicable in Bavaria, although it's a federal act. And this definition says that control is present. There are two aspects. The first aspect is if the utility is subject to special duties, for example, an obligation to conclude contracts, so to provide energy, for example, to all residents of a certain perimeter, or have special rights. For example, if you build a house, you have to connect it to the sewage. So that's a right for the one who provides the sewage system. That's one aspect, which is, pretty straightforward. For most energy utilities, at least, they have these special duties as private companies. But for the second aspect of control then is more a financial aspect, saying that control is present if a public authority or any other public legal person holds the major part of the undertaking's subscribed capital, so the shares, and also controls the majority of the voting rights attached to that shares, or they can appoint more than half of the company's managerial, supervisory, or administrative board. That is very rarely the case with the companies because they, of course, have been privatized, and so the state usually doesn't hold more than 50% anymore. But once you've established that a utility is actually affected by Inspire, I most immediately get the question back, do I have to provide all my data publicly available to everyone? And to that, of course, I say, that'd be very nice. But I also have to say that, of course, the utility can limit access, for example, on grounds of public security or confidentiality. We've heard that a couple of times also today, confidentiality of commercial or industrial information. So now we've made it through the legal part of the presentation already. So moving on to experiences now. In Bavaria, just like in the rest of Germany, the utility sector is characterized by rather few large, super-regional private companies and a lot of municipal enterprises. And we've heard a figure from Ed. He said, I think 650 or something in the Netherlands. That's quite a lot. And also in Bavaria alone, there are several hundred utilities we have to coordinate and deal with. And we don't have a regulation like yours saying everybody has to participate and they have to provide the data in a certain way. And so that's great. We'll look at that because you said it's available in English. So yeah, we'll certainly have a look at that. Another thing one should also take into consideration, I have a similar image here, Maria borrowed that from a presentation last year, very nice, is the special nature of utilities data. Because, at least in Germany, there are still different ways to represent location present. The first one is coordinates, which of course fits very nicely with our Inspire and GIS approach. But the second one is location of a pipe in relation to another feature. The corner of a house, maybe. So you just have a map, you have the pipe, and then you have a measure with 5 meters, and yeah. So that doesn't fit so well with the GIS approach. So network data is today most often presented as a raster map where the pipes or the cables are in fixed connection with cadastre and with a certain state of the cadastre at a certain date and a certain reference system. So that's the way they do it today. And also sometimes the exact location of underground features, cables or pipe, may not be known. So, and according to the utility companies, this fuzziness has to be evident from the map. So for security reasons, the applicants have to be made aware that there might be a certain security in the location of this cable, which also doesn't fit very well when you just publish a WFS and which doesn't have this information usually. So, and also what we saw is something similar, like Ed said, just on a very federated way, that there are a lot of applications out there already, maintained by mostly utility companies. They do it by themselves, so there's a lot of, not one central, but a lot of applications which provide information on the location of cables and pipes on application by building contractors to avoid excavation damage. They work quite well, but they are not integrated, of course. And what we also learned is that you don't get very far in the Inspire process without the support of the trade associations of the utility sector. And they don't always share the legal opinion being affected. So, I mean, as I said, we just started this process of dialogue, and we will have to do some convincing also. Because utilities, they did voice quite a few concerns. You probably all have faced that. Security concerns, for example, that the exact location of a high-pressure gas pipeline is probably not something you want publicly available. And also, of course, especially with, I mean, let's say the last mile, I mean, the connection of a household to the network, they consider as confidential commercial industrial information, because it shouldn't be seen by competitors. And also, and now I come to the point, what the question I asked previously, is that what some of the utilities have experienced is that once they gave their data, for example, to a municipality, under the obligation that they are not allowed to provide line information to excavators, because the utility companies have to provide this line information according to very specific technical rules. So there's a rule saying what has to be in the map and the connection and so on and so on. And so they gave the data to the municipality, and the municipality said, no, we're not using that for line information. So what are you using it for then? Oh, yeah, when someone comes and wants to dig, we show him where the cable is. So, well, that's kind of line information. So they kind of feel liability issues with that. So when this information is given out in an uncontrolled manner, which is very likely when you just provide a WFS, and people can use that and combine it with their own data, cadastral data, which may be an older version or maybe in a different reference system. And I mean, maybe these are just very theoretical concerns, and they probably don't have any big impact in practice, but that's what we get when we try to convince people. So in effect, it is very likely that access to services providing utilities data will be limited in Bavaria. And also, these concerns are reflected in the monitoring for Bavaria and for Germany as a whole, because in the last monitoring, there were no services reported which provide new services or download services which provide utilities data. Is probably also related to the fact that we just started this process involving the utilities, so we have to do a lot more in that sense. But I just had a look at other countries' monitoring results. By chance, the Netherlands and Spain. So in the Netherlands, I found, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I found a similar situation, that no services have been reported. In Spain, on the other hand, I found some services in the Inspire monitoring, which are provided by, I don't know if it's Spanish, so I'm not so sure if it's private companies or not, but there are at least some.
You can ask the responsible of monitoring.
Ah, okay, so I'll ask you, because I finished by asking you questions, so maybe you can.
Thank you, ma'am. She's the one leading this.
Okay, excellent, excellent, good. So my conclusion for Bavaria, maybe for Germany, is that for utilities and Inspire, the relationship status is still, it's complicated. But we're working on it, and we hope that we will have some progress we can report at another conference maybe. And I just want to end by asking you a few questions. Saying, what is the legal situation in your country? Or can you share any best practices in involving utilities? You already did, but maybe someone else also has experiences. And also best practices in providing utilities data as Inspire compliant view and download services. And of course, last step in the Inspire schema. So I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid. But before we come back to your questions, maybe you have also some questions to Astrid.
I think it's related to one of your questions. But are we sure that download services have to be accessible to the public?
No, that's why I said you can limit access according to certain reasons. That's true. But I mean, maybe a special.
Yes, please use the mic.
No, this one or this one. Maybe that's a specialty in the Bavarian law. The Bavarian law says that on grounds of confidentiality, for example, you can only limit the access of the public, but not of public authorities. So they would have access to the data anyway. And that's also one concern the companies apparently have. So, of course, that's true for the public. You can limit access, but that's not something we would like to promote very widely. But in this case, it will be done to limit access and with authorization mechanisms and stuff like that.
Well, that goes for WMS and WFS.
Yeah, true. For both types of services, that's true.
No, only to reinforce the idea that you should follow the Geosmartcity project, because it's not only one pilot in Pamplona in presenting, but also other municipalities, as is Genova, that also they have a lot of problems with just providing this information on a free and open environment. So OEIRAS in Portugal and also in Czech Republic. And so I think that could be also a good opportunity just to follow the project and see how we are dealing with this. Probably we can include you in our list, emailing list, just to keep you up to date.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Just maybe one question to you also, because you're probably also looking into the future. And I think a very crucial part of such an information system is that all sectors of utilities and all companies are in it, because otherwise when you draw your little perimeter where you want to make an excavation, and you will get an answer, there is pipes or cables or not, then it's only valid if everyone's participating. And do you have any views on, I mean, these are local pilots in cities, but the regional aspect and the cross-sector aspect to involve many organizations? Because, or is there a law mandating that they, like in the Netherlands, that they participate?
No.
Yeah.
We don't really have any regulation, just that mandate the participation. The participation is just on a voluntary basis, the approach I have presented. So it's something that, well, is good because it's an example of a public-private partnership, and the way they are sharing the information, they are sharing the real network information, so the lines, the vector information, no raster information among them. But at the end, another users out of the consortium are just receiving a PDF or a map or something like that. But well, I think that is also quite difficult to keep all of them, because we are not talking only about telecom, but also gas and water, and so all the different kind of utility companies. So.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There was another question over here.
Hello, Giorgio Saio from Geosmartcity Association. We are involved and we are coordinating Geosmartcity. The topics of the integrated management of the underground is indeed very sensitive for many reasons. And looking at the best practice to involving utility or in some way to inspire compliant, we are approaching these topics with the main goal that is the challenge to have a cadastre of the underground. So that is the key was that we go to the, for example, together with the municipality of Genova for that. This comes from a long story, at least in Genoa, that they try to do this type of cadastre. On the paper, or the intention, all are agree on that, because the municipality forced to get the data to avoid accident, security, and other things. In practically, this never work. So through this project, we intended to force, in some way, using Inspire as the excuse for that, to reach this goal, because we say that Europe now impose Inspire as a standard interoperability and so on. All the public authority from national to regional and the municipality have to do that. So there was some attention on that. But now I have a question for everybody. What is your, from your experience, why the utility are so reluctant to give the data? Is just because they don't want to give the data, or because they haven't in good quality? That is a real crucial point, because my feeling is that some of the utility use the fact that they don't want to give the data because they are ashamed to give them, because most probably they have just old paper draw some time and inaccurate and other things. So some of the utility have invested and they have some, maybe not really with good precision, but some other we know that have not at all good quality data or at all. So, and in most cases not digitalized, at least in some cases also.
Reaction on this?
Where we are now is not the first step. I've mentioned it. We started in 1967, and a main step was in 2008 when the WION Act came into force. And in that act, information model is obligatory for every network operator in the Netherlands. We started working to that act already in 2005. So nearly every network operator was at that point ready for the WION Act. That doesn't mean that the information is correct. There might be differences in actual position of the cable or pipeline regarding to the map. If that position is more than 1 meter difference, then he has to correct it only when reported. He doesn't have to work along the whole network to correct, to measure it again and correct it then. So when reported that there is a main difference, more than 1 meter, he has to correct his network. When there is a damage because of a wrong position on the map, for instance, a cable is signed on the left side of the road, and it is on the right side of the road.
Happens.
Might be. And there is a damage because of that wrong map. In most cases, the network operator is liable for the damage. So
that could be a very good practice, best practice to force this cadastral underground. But of course, I don't know if
there's a drive to correct.
Yes, okay, yes, but if this regulation is applicable for all the country, in Netherlands it's very good practice. Yes.
Okay, it's a very interesting discussion. But we still have one presentation left.
Oh, sorry.
And maybe we come back to this discussion after the last presentation, when we have some time. The last presentation comes from Rob Eijsink, and he's talking about Inspire and drinking water and wastewater services.
Yes. Thank you, Daniela. Ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob Eijsink. I'm from the Netherlands. I have a job at the National Association of Drinking Water Companies in Holland. But today I will be talking to you on behalf of our European Association of the Water Services Sector, which is called EURO. And EURO is an abbreviation of European Water, as you can see. So we represent the water services sector in Europe. In my presentation, I will go into the interrelationships between Inspire and the water services sector in a more general way. I'll give to you a brief introduction on Euro and the water sector in Europe, just to make you a bit more familiar with how water works in Europe. I will get into how Inspire relates to the water services sector, and I will give Euro's views on Inspire, and we will come back to utilities and networks at the end of my presentation as well. So as for Euro represents European drinking water and wastewater service operators. We have in total 70,000 operators which are in our association represented. We provide water services to over 400 million people in the EU. Both public and private companies are represented within Euro. In a number of countries like France and the UK, it will be mostly private companies, but overall EU-wide we will generally see public companies. Our goal is to provide high-quality water services, high-quality drinking water, which meets all the relevant standards. We aim to do so at lowest practicable cost, and we also aim to do so in an environmentally sustainable way. Euro members, we have 25 members in our association coming from all the EU member states. We have 3 members from the EFTA countries, which is the European Free Trade Association. So I think Euro well represents the water services sector in Europe. Just a few words about water resources. One of our tasks is providing drinking water. We have several resources available for this purpose. In this slide you see it subdivided to the EU members. A number of countries rely on groundwater, another number of countries more or less completely rely on surface water. We have spring water, which is more or less in between groundwater and surface water, and there are even a few countries of the smaller countries in the southern regions that are using seawater for drinking water supply. On average, in the right-hand bar in this graph, you will see that we make drinking water for 50% out of groundwater. It's about 35% out of surface water, and 15% comes from spring water. Well, obviously we have large underground networks. Again, a slide with water services, drinking water, wastewater, subdivided by Euro members. You will find drinking water, wastewater pipes in almost every street within the EU. And in total, this sums up to the impressive amount of 3.5 million kilometers of drinking water pipes and 2.2 million kilometers of wastewater pipes. And again, yes, we are part of Inspire, so this is one area in which Inspire touches upon the drinking water services sector. We are in theme 3, the utility and governmental services, and we will be providing data on behalf of Inspire. So how does Inspire relate to the water services sector in a more general sense? And I must say that our prime interest is not, I have to say, cables and pipelines, but our prime interest is water quality services, and Inspire is going to deliver a lot of data to this, I suppose. So I expect Inspire to provide information that we can use to assess environmental threats to our resources. I expect it to provide data that we will be using to predict abstracted water quality, data that will help us to assess changes in abstracted water quality that we will use to assess whether or not changes in purification processes are needed. So this is a prime area in which I think water services sector, and especially the drinking water sector, will benefit from Inspire. We will be using a lot of the themes from Inspire. I have a slide on this later on. And we may just be one of the major end users of Inspire as a whole. On the other side, Inspire data will also be used by governments in support of water policies. Here lies an interest to us as well. We rely on sound and robust water policies at all levels, national and EU level, and we wish Inspire to provide the data, accurate data, to be able to support policy making. And finally, we will expect Inspire to provide data to us that we use in day-to-day operations. Like, for example, billing of our clients, we use addresses, we use different types of data in our asset management, and we use the data for planning and operating resources. So on the whole, yes, we have high expectations from Inspire, and a lot of data will be useful. Just to go into this a bit deeper, Inspire helps us to define threats and threats to our resources and protection and water policy. A number of items that are relevant to this. We use soil types to predict leaching of nitrates and pesticides. The geology theme in Inspire will be helpful for exploring water reserves, which is part of aquifers, is part of the geology theme. Of course, land use, land cover, environmental monitoring facilities, environmental monitoring data are going to be useful. Production facilities by industries and agriculture to assess threats to resources. Area management is going to be in Inspire. Restriction zones for water supply, etc., etc. So a whole lot of data that we will use, and on the other side there might also be some areas in this in which the water services sector is going to provide data to Inspire. We also have monitoring networks ourselves around our abstraction sites for monitoring groundwater, monitoring surface water. These are under the licensing for water abstraction, so they might be part of Inspire. We do a lot of borings and drillings in the underground to explore groundwater reserves. These data might fall under the geology theme. So here you see that we are not only an end user of Inspire, but again we might be also a supplier of information to the Inspire themes. Inspire data that we use in day-to-day operations. I mentioned addresses we use for billing. We use administrative units for licensing. We use cadastral parcels to establish access rights to our underground networks with the landowners. Transport networks and buildings, or in a more general sense, topographic maps will be used for georeferencing of our networks. Utility services came by already. We like to present information to people who will do excavations. We want to prevent damage to our underground networks. And we will be using probably habitats, biotopes, species to assess whether or not our day-to-day operations might be harmful to the environment. So also in this area of day-to-day operations we will be using Inspire. So what is Euro's position as to Inspire as a whole? And I think we have to see this within the broader context of EU legislation on water. We have a lot of EU policies in place that will help us to ensure that we have a proper protection of drinking water resources. We have safe and healthy drinking water for European citizens. So Inspire must and is going to support these EU policies by providing relevant and usable data for authorities and water suppliers. But Inspire must therefore be well integrated with other EU legislation, and in this case especially the Water Framework Directive springs to mind. So I think there are more EU policies that will benefit from Inspire. Water Framework Directive, but Nitrates Directive will be using data to assess nitrate leaching. Pesticides regulation, a lot of policies that are in place and that will be using data and that will be helpful to the water sector. But there is a bit an if or a but, if you wish, to this. I think in order to be able to fulfill this expectation that we have, it's crucial that both pieces of legislation, Water Framework Directive, Inspire, are sufficiently intercorrelated. Meaning that Inspire must deliver data that are usable within the framework of the Water Framework Directive in terms of data formats, data definitions, frequency, accuracy, etc. And I've been attending a few of the sessions earlier yesterday, and I noticed that on a number of occasions this came forward, that the alignment between Inspire and the water policies is an issue. So I think there are a lot of interrelationships between the Water Framework Directive and the Groundwater Directive. In this slide I listed just a number of the terminology that both directives seem to have in common. We have aquifers in the Inspire Directive in the theme geology. We have groundwater bodies in the Water Framework Directive, or water bodies in more general. Protected areas occur in both directives, monitoring networks the same. Water abstraction facilities, habitats, etc., etc. So a lot of terminology both directives have in common. And I think the essence of this is that if we, just a few words on the picture. I've brought a picture to show you what the implementation of the Water Framework Directive is in terms of groundwater bodies in the Netherlands. And this is how you see how this works out. So water bodies is a central concept in the Water Framework Directive. All the data that are being used in the Water Framework Directive are associated with water bodies, and this applies to groundwater bodies. But the same applies to surface water bodies. And what is striking in this is that this concept is not known in Inspire. Inspire mentions aquifers, and the data elaboration, data specification has already been worked out, and aquifers is completely differently defined than water bodies. So this might hamper the interrelationships between the Water Framework Directive and Inspire. And the essence of this is that if we do not have a common understanding of such basic elements as aquifers and water bodies, groundwater bodies, the interoperability of Inspire data and the use within the context of the Water Framework Directive may be seriously hampered. So I think this is an area that we have to further explore how to improve this, how to make this work. So I come back to more or less the final slide in my presentation, back to the utility networks. And this is the area in which public operators can and will probably be suppliers of information to Inspire. Annex 3, the theme utility and governmental services, but the same applies to production facilities. Within the theme production and industrial facilities. And I think in this area we will have to look to find a proper balance between, on the one hand, open data, free access to information, which we adhere to in a general sense, but on the other hand, security, protection of vital infrastructures. And in this respect, the starting point, I think, must be that water services are vital for society. And any intended disruptions in these services can seriously influence the functioning of society as a whole. So as a general principle, I think these services should therefore only be provided, information on these services should only be provided to those persons that have a well-defined and accepted interest in getting this information. So this is where I come to the end of my introduction. Let me recapitulate the conclusions. First of all, yes, Inspire is of importance to the water services sector. Yes, we will be using a lot of the data on the one hand, but otherwise, on the other hand, we will also be providing data to Inspire. Secondly, I think we will have to further look into how the interoperability and the alignment with the Water Framework Directive and the demands from this side can be further improved. And thirdly, we will have to find a proper balance between open data on the one hand and protection of vital infrastructures on the other hand. So, thank you for your attention. Open for questions.
Thank you, Rob. So we just have 5 minutes for questions.
you, Daniela. It's very interesting how many data teams of Inspire you listed as potentially interesting, even though at a different level. Did you start elaborating any specific use case in which how to combine the different information coming from the different layers in order to be more effective for your objectives?
The use case is that all of these data that I've listed will be useful in assessing threats to resources and how to manage threats to resources. So all the data that I listed in a more general sense are being used nowadays, will be used in the future. We did not go into how the data definitions and the further elaboration of these themes within Inspire has been worked out and how this helps or hampers us in using these data. So we didn't go into this much deeper. But in a more general sense, these are the type of data that are usable to water suppliers.
Any other questions for Rob? No? Maybe we can come back to Astrid's discussion. Or are there any other questions to the other presenters as well? Maybe there's something that is coming up in your mind.
Maybe a quick answer to George. Georgia, I was gonna answer your question for Germany at least. Maybe it's a bit like that on the one hand, the smaller companies, they may have a little bit of a mess in that, or they don't probably have a fully functional network information system yet. Many have. And the larger companies, they usually already have in place an online tool for giving out the information, so they don't see an added value in providing the data in a different way online, because they wouldn't save any effort. On the contrary, they would have more effort to provide more services, because they already have this online tools in place, so which are not Inspire compliant, of course.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the whole session? If this is not the case, then I will close the then I'm going to close the session, and thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of the conference.